Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Barnes & Noble webinar presented by Reedsy. So we're starting right on time, but we're just going to wait a couple of minutes until everyone can join us. It's going to be just me today, but I know that the Barnes & Noble press team is watching this. Cool. So we already have around 30 people in. So welcome. I'm using a system that doesn't let me see your comments live, but I've got someone from the Reedsy team monitoring your comments on the right side of the video. So if you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to ask them in there, and either she'll answer directly or she'll forward me the questions in an email, and I'll take all the questions at the end of the webinar. So feel free to interact during the webinar, and I'll do what I can to answer all the questions at the end. And another bit of housekeeping, you're more than welcome to take notes, but you will also get the slides and a link to the webinar replay. So you'll get basically all the information I'm sharing right now after the webinar. Cool, we're near 50 people now, so I think we're gonna get started. So welcome to this Barnes & Noble Press and Reedsy webinar on how to craft the ultimate book marketing plan. So we're going to be talking all about book marketing. And I am, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Ricardo Fayet. I'm one of the founders of Reedsy. You've got my email address right here on this slide, and you'll get the slides. So if you have any questions after the webinar that are more like particular to your book, feel free to email me, and I'll do my best to answer all the emails I get. And if you don't know about Reedsy, just a quick slide of introduction. We're basically a community of best-in-class publishing professionals. So think book editors, proofreaders, cover designers, illustrators, website designers, publicists, and marketers. So you can see some of the people. We have the marketplace there, and we're also proud partners of Barnes & Noble Press for editorial and marketing services. So I've personally been helping a lot of authors with book marketing, running ads for them, creating marketing strategies. I've talked a lot with a lot of the marketers on our marketplace, which is why I thought, okay, it'd be cool to do a webinar for Barnes & Noble Press authors on book marketing, because I know that's an issue that comes time and again. And the way I like to illustrate the publishing journey, and especially marketing the publishing journey, is through this scheme. As you can see, for me, like, marketing isn't something that you do after the editing, the design, and the distribution. It doesn't come at the end here. It comes from the very beginning, something you do throughout the publishing journey. You should think about the marketing of your book before you even start writing it, because one of the essential components of the marketing is your target market, and that's something you should have in mind before you even write the book. There are two kinds of marketing that we need to distinguish. There are the kind of evergreen actions you need to take on a day-to-day basis to build your platform. So that's having an author website, keeping it up to date, maybe having a sign up to your newsletter in there with a lead magnet, offering something in return for the sign up, having a mailing list, having automated sequences in your mailing list, kind of the automation of your marketing on a day-to-day basis, and the interaction with your readers through social media. And then there are actions you take, obviously, around launches. That's where the bulk of the activity in terms of marketing should be concentrated, because you really want to boost visibility at launch. So there's making sure that you have the right retailer metadata, the right blurb, that you're able to generate reviews, and then that you have a proper marketing plan to get the sales you want at launch. Cool. So this is what we're going to cover really in this webinar. We're going to cover what you need to know before you plan your launch, so who your target market is, and what your goals are, and how to put together a proper marketing plan and why that's important. And then we're going to delve into the most popular marketing channels where you can leverage. So we're going to be talking Facebook ads, Bookbub ads, mailing lists, and all that. And then we're also going to cover when and why it makes sense to hire professional help, because that's one of the questions I get most often at Reedsy is, can I just hire a book marketer to do all this for me? And the answer is a bit complicated. It's not yes and no. So we'll get to that in the end. Cool. So what do you need to know before you plan your next book launch? The first thing you need to know is what your goals are. So this is something that you should be thinking about, I think, on a yearly basis as an author throughout your career is, okay, what are my goals for this year? Maybe you want to do you want to make a living out of your writing? I think that's the most common goal among authors. Sometimes for a given launch, for a given book, you just want to hit a bestseller list. So that's a very clear goal that requires a completely different strategy for the launch of that book. Or you want that book to add as a lead magnet for your other activities. So that's more for nonfiction authors. Maybe you've got a course on the side, maybe you've got a consultancy, you've got a business, and you want to establish thought leadership. So again, completely different goal, completely different marketing. Or maybe you just want to put the book out there. So that's the case of a lot of debut authors just want to have a book out there, in which case you shouldn't bother that much about marketing. But I'm pretty sure that's going to come in a time where you're going to have readers reading your book, and that's what marketing is all about, is getting readers to notice your book, read it, and hopefully enjoy it, and then spread the word. Once you have your goals clearly identified, the next very important thing to know is who your target market is. And that's where I see, honestly, most authors struggling when it comes to marketing. That's the number one issue that I see most authors facing, is an inability to define a narrow target market. So when I ask authors, who are you writing for? Sometimes I get like everyone, or, oh, I write YA, so all teenagers. I get very broad answers. And that really doesn't help when it comes to marketing, because if you want to target all YA readers, how are you going to do? You're just going to stop like teenagers in the street and tell them about your book. It's not going to work. So when you think about target markets for your book, you need to think narrow. As Henry Ford used to say, if everyone's your customer, then no one's your customer, because you don't know, you cannot define exactly the traits of your customer, and you cannot reach them through effective marketing. So one trick that I often teach authors is to use proto-personas. So to invent a persona, a fake reader, and give them as much characteristics as you can. For example, here we've got Wendy Jones. She reads literary fiction. She's in her 30s. She's read every classic novel from the 20th century. She probably reads sites like Brain Pickings and Literary Hub. And maybe she's got a subscription to 3 or 4 literary magazines. And you keep defining her with interests and demographics like that. And of course, that's not the only type of person who's going to read your book, but the narrower the proto-persona, the narrower the target market you have in mind, the easier it's going to be to start marketing, because you'll have a clear place where to start. And maybe you're going to advertise in those literary magazines. Maybe you're going to do Facebook ads targeting readers of those magazines. And maybe you're going to join literary fiction groups, book clubs, etc. So the more you define a proto-persona, the more ideas you'll get for the marketing afterwards. So a few ways to determine your target market if you're not feeling very imaginative about it. One very simple way is to browse retailer categories. So you go into Barnes & Noble and you scroll down on the left sidebar, and you're going to see the subjects here. And if you click on fiction, you're going to get a bunch of, for example, fiction genres. And you're going to see all these subgenres. And for example, if you're writing a thriller, don't think, okay, my target market is thriller readers, because there are a bunch of subcategories within thrillers, as we're going to see afterwards. Is it an action thriller? Is it a spy thriller? Is it a psychological thriller? Is it more of a mystery, cozy mystery? So there are a bunch of different subcategories, and then again, the narrower you go into subcategory, the easier it's going to be to market to it. Then you can analyze your competition. Look at your current readers, what draws them. Look at the readers for other writers, like which other writers do you really think your book is close to? Which other books do you think your book is close to? And see where they are in terms of categories and who the readers are. And maybe reach out to those authors and just ask them for advice. And then you can use Facebook Audience Insights. If you've ever run a Facebook ad, if you've ever run a Facebook ad, you can use Facebook Audience Insights, which is a tool that basically allows you to analyze audiences. So for example, If you think your readers are fans of Stephen King, you can plug in Stephen King as an interest there, and it's going to tell you the percentage, basically the demographics of that audience, and it's going to also tell you page likes. So if you go on the tab page likes afterwards, you can see which are the pages the fans of Stephen King like on Facebook. So that might give you ideas for other interests to target in your Facebook advertising. But we'll get to that later. Cool. So why should you bother about a national marketing plan? This is a quote I really like from a best-selling UK author, Rachel Abbott, who got really, really successful in self-publishing, I think 5-6 years ago already. And success started with her when she really focused her marketing activities, when she really wrote down a plan, decided what she was going to do, and started testing tactics. And almost from one day to the other, her books started shooting up the charts. So that's what a marketing plan can do for you. Because the other really issue I see most authors struggling with is that they do a bunch of things in terms of marketing. They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, maybe they run Insta freebie giveaways, maybe they offer lead magnet, and they do so many things that they get like drawn into a daily routine, and they don't even know whether it produces results or not. And if it produces some little results, they don't know what produces the little results, if it's the Twitter, if it's the Insta freebie, if it's the Facebook. So what you need to do is decide of a few things that you're going to do and see if they work or not. And that's what a marketing plan is there to do. So what should you include in your launch plan? The first thing is to have your retailer metadata very clear. So well before you publish your book, or even a month or two before that, you should know exactly in which categories you're going to put it, which keywords you're going to use, what your blurb's going to be, or what your cover's going to be. Then the next goal of your marketing plan is to define exactly how you're going to get reviews at launch. Whether you're going to use a street team or you're going to do blogger outreach, you should know how many reviews you want on the different retailers and how you're going to get them. Then it's all about sales. So you should have a daily target for your sales at launch and an idea of how you're going to achieve those sales, what activities you're going to do in order to generate those sales. And finally, the channels that are going to bring those sales. So how are you going to generate them? So we're going to go through all these. The first one is retailer page metadata. So what I mean by that is the categories, the blurb, the cover, and the preview. So you get five categories for any Barnes & Noble Press ebook. And I'm going to show you next how to kind of go about picking them. Then this goes a little bit, the way to think about this is to think about how a reader discovers your book. So a reader is going to be browsing a store, for example, or is going to be receiving email recommendations. And where your book shows in the store in these email recommendations depends a lot on the categories you pick. So the discoverability of your book is going to be heavily, heavily impacted by the categories. So you should get that right. Then if you show your book thanks to the categories to the right readers, they're going to look at the cover. If they like the cover, then they're going to take a look at the blurb. And if they like the blurb, they're going to preview the book. So we're going to go through all these phases and explain how to optimize them. So the first thing I want to be talking about, and that's going to be taking quite a bit of time, is how to pick your categories on the Barnes & Noble store. And what I'm going to explain here can be applied to pretty much any other e-retailer out there. So the first thing you want to do is take a look at all the available categories on the store. On Barnes & Noble, you've got the categories on the left sidebar. If you scroll down to subjects, you're going to see all these categories here. If your book is fiction, click on fiction, and that's going to bring up another set of subcategories. If your book is thriller, after fiction, you click on thriller, and you're going to get yet another set of subcategories. And I want you to go deep down like that until you don't have other sets of subcategories in the sidebar, and that's when you've reached the lowest level of a category. So that's the way to kind of investigate how all the possibilities in terms of categories you can list your book in. Now, you don't just want to know how many categories, how many possibilities you have. You also want to know which 5 you want to pick, because you can only pick 5. And the way to do that is to analyze the books that are in these categories. So I'm going to come back to this slide afterwards. Actually, I'm going to show you this spreadsheet. So this is how I like to analyze. It's a very data-driven way to analyze categories. So I basically go to the Barnes & Noble store, and I go on fiction, and then I click on thrillers. So I get to this URL, Nook Books, Fictions, Thrillers. And this is the main thriller category. And what I'm going to do there is analyze the first 6 books that show up in the results for this category. And I'm going to annotate their sale rank on the overall store. So if I go back to this slide, this is, I think, this was the first book overall in a category on Nook. If you scroll down, you get to the product details. If you click on product details here, you're going to see sales rank 2. So this means that this book on the whole Nook store is number 2 right now in terms of bestseller rank. Now, I go back to my category, Nook Books, Fictions, Thrillers, and I click on the first book. I go down to the product details, and I see that its selling rank of the first book is number 4. So that book is number 4 overall on the Nook store. Then I do the same analysis for the second book in the results for Fiction Thrillers. And the second book is number 5 overall on the Nook store. And I do the same thing for the first 6 books. Then I take the average selling rank of the books 1 to 3. So that average is 9. And then I take the average selling ranks of books 1 to 6. And that average is 16. Now, I do this analysis over 6 books. You can do it over 20 books. You can do it over 50 books. It can get a bit tiring. I think 6 already gives you a good idea of what we're trying to judge here is the competitiveness of a category. What does this mean, basically? It means that if you list your book in thrillers, your book is not going to show up in the top results of the thriller category unless it basically shows up in the top results of the whole Nook store. So it's a very, very competitive category. If we look at crime thrillers, it's similarly competitive. Like if we look at the average selling rank of books 1 to 3, it's 9, 11, 1, 6, 17, 29. So basically, if you're not in the first 30 books overall, you're not going to show up in the first 6 books on thrillers. And if you're not in the first 70, in the first 65 books, you're not going to show up in the first 6 results of crime thrillers. What does it mean? If you don't show up in the first results of a category, it basically serves little purpose for you to have your book in that category, because readers who are going to be browsing that category or receiving recommendations from Barnes & Noble about books in that category, they're not going to be looking past books probably 10 or 20. So you want to be in the top spots of a category. So now, let's say I'm launching a book and I think I can launch my book into the top 300. If it's the first time you're publishing a book, you probably have no idea about that. So what I suggest is that you contact other authors in your genre, and you ask them, you basically ask them about this. You said, where do you list your book? Where did your book end up overall at launch in the Nook store? And you basically get an idea of how many sales you're going to need at launch and where that book's going to end up. So let's say I believe I can get my book in the top 300. Now, these are the 5 categories I can pick. I'm not going to try to picking competitive categories like thrillers or crime thrillers, because my book, again, is not going to show up in the top results of that category, so it serves no purpose. I'm also not going to pick categories where my book's going to show where categories that are not competitive at all. For example, espionage, intrigue, fiction. My book's probably going to be number 1 because I think I can get into the top 300 overall, and the number 1 in that category right now is 642 overall. So my book's would be number 1 in that category. But what this also means is that books that are in the top 6 in that category, they don't sell that well in the end. So they probably don't get recommended as much. It's not a category that's going to bring you a lot of sales, which is why it's very important. It's kind of a balancing game. You don't want to be in a category that's too competitive, but you also don't want to be in a category that doesn't bring any sales should you reach the top 3 or 6 in that category. So if you have an idea of where you can get your book to overall in the Nook store, and again, you can get that idea by talking to other authors, you can then choose your categories pretty wisely by doing this kind of analysis. Now, I know it's very kind of data-driven, and it might not make sense at first. So if you have questions about this, feel free to ask them in the questions after the webinar, or drop me an email about it, and I'll try to explain it into another way. Cool. Now you've picked your categories, it's time to talk about the blurb. So the blurb is where basically writing meets copywriting. And I know a lot of authors, a lot of novelists who are amazing at writing stories and are really, really bad at writing a blurb, which kind of drives me crazy. But it makes sense in a way, because a blurb is a condensation of information. You need to really hook the reader in the first few sentences and tell them in just a few lines what your book's going to be about, which is really hard for a lot of people. So we've concocted this little 4-step way of creating a blurb on our blog, which I think works for a lot of authors. Step 1 is to introduce your main characters. Especially if your book's character-driven, you want to basically introduce who the main characters are going to be, and then what the stakes are through conflict. So introduce your main character, then set the stage for what the conflict is, and then what the stakes are. And then finally, you can show the reader why this book is for them. So if you've got comp authors in mind, you can mention them in your blurb, or you can say perfect read for if you love psychological thrillers, things like that. What I really recommend is, on top of using this little formula, is reading the blurbs of the best-selling books in your genre. They're all going to use kind of a variation of this formula usually, but you can take inspiration from a lot of them. One very important thing about the blurb is that most retailers like B&N Noble are not going to show the whole blurb. They're going to have a show more button. So the first few lines are extremely important, because people are going to scroll down and they're just going to look, they're just going to see the first few lines. So you need to grab them with these first lines. This is an example from Mark Dawson. Just one sentence to start with that acts as a hook. It shows that it's thriller, that it's spy thriller, that it's connected to the John Milton series, and also establishes the conflict, the stakes. So it kind of does the whole job in just one line. And that's really tough, but if you get to that, then you've really hooked the reader through just one line. They're going to keep reading the rest of the blurb. And once they've read the rest of the blurb, if the book is for them, what a lot of them are going to do is use the reader preview. So most retailers have a preview function like Barnes & Noble. And this is a screenshot of a book previewed through the Barnes & Noble Reader Previewer. What I want to highlight here is you don't want any typos in your first few pages, because for the people who read previews, they might be put off by that. So not only does your blurb need to hook the readers, your first few pages need to be pristine, and ideally they should hook the reader as well, so that when they get to the end of the preview, they're like, okay, I need to buy this book, I need to know what happens next. Now, we've talked about kind of the presentation of your book on the store. We're going to talk about how to secure reviews, because obviously what your book looks like is very important, but a lot of customers are interested in knowing what other customers are saying about your book. So what's the best way to make sure that you've got reviews at launch, even if it's the first book you've published and you don't have any reader teams yet? Well, the main way is to create a street team. So a street team is basically a group of ultra dedicated readers who can sometimes provide feedback. They could be beta readers, for example, and who are going to leave you a review as soon as you launch your book. We're going to explain how this exactly works afterwards, but the main question I get about street teams is, how do you find the first people for your street team? Usually, a good place to start is friends and family. If you've told them that you're writing a book, and if they are readers of that genre, don't try to like reel them in if they just hate your genre just because they're friends of yours. Make sure that they're friends or family and that they read in your genre. then they're obviously going to be interested in reading your book. So share the book earlier with them and make sure that they leave a review at launch. If you don't have a lot of friends in your genre, you can try using Facebook communities of readers in your genre. We have a Reedsy Facebook group, for example, where very often people will say, okay, I'm working on a historical mystery set in this time period. Would anyone be interested in being a beta reader for it? And beta readers generally then join your street team and help you with reviews at launch. Same, you've got communities on Facebook, on Goodreads. You can also use writer feedback forums like Absolute Writer Scribophile. And you can find reviewers in your genre on all those communities. A good idea that I already mentioned is to reach out to other indie or traditionally published authors in your genre. So you shouldn't basically reach out to a best-selling author and tell them, hey, I'm working on a book. Would you like to get an advanced review copy of it? They're not going to be interested in that if they don't know you at all. What you could do instead is start by buying their book, reading it, reviewing it, dropping them in line by email, mentioning how much you like their book. If you did, obviously, always be honest. And if they answer, then maybe tell them that you're yourself working on your book and see if they offer they show some interest. If they show some interest, then tell them more about your book and try to basically make friends with them. Most successful authors I know are friends with other authors, with a bunch of other indie authors in their genre. So the author community is a very supportive one most of the time. So don't be afraid to kind of take advantage of that and just make friends with other authors in your genre. Now, how you engage with your street team, one very, very important thing is that your street team shouldn't be part of your main mailing list. It's a different list or it's a different segment in your list. And you should provide exclusive things for them. So maybe do exclusive cover reveals in advance of your cover reveal, send them bonus content, basically try to make them feel special. Because you basically want them to feel special so that they're more inclined to leave your review at launch and do you favors. So if you want a review at launch, you obviously need to give them a review copy a good month or two before the launch. So that's a free copy that you send to them. I'm going to be talking about the tool afterwards that you can use that makes giving this copy away easier. You just send them this free copy and don't tell them, I'm sending this free copy, so you need to give me a review at launch. That's against the terms of service of pretty much any retailer. Send them the copy, to invite them to let you know about any remaining typos, encourage their feedback about the book once they've read it. And then at launch, when you launch the book, send them an email saying, I hope you managed to read the book. If you enjoyed it, I'd love it if you left a positive, an honest, not a positive, very important, an honest review on the following retailers, give the links directly. So you basically do most of the work for them. And always ask for an honest review and never make it a compulsory one. Like, you're taking a gamble by giving copies away, that's true, but you should never basically force street team readers to leave a review. So that tool I was going to mention is BookFunnel. BookFunnel makes it very easy to distribute advanced review copies. So if you just got a street team of 20, 25 people, then you probably don't need to use a tool. But once you start having like 50, 100 or more people in a street team, I don't recommend having more than 100, by the way. You should still be an exclusive list. I recommend using a tool that, like BookFunnel or InstaFreebie as well, that makes it easy to deliver the content. What BookFunnel does is basically generates a download page for your book. So you just send your street team a link to that page, and BookFunnel is going to do the rest. It's going to ask them about their device preferences, and it's going to send them the right file to the right device. Now, once you've started writing a few books, publishing a few books, you've got your street team, there are ways, and it can be a good idea to keep growing your street team over time. And the best way to do that is just to invite people from your existing reader base maybe who've discovered you in the recent months or years, who aren't part of your street team yet, to become part of your street team. You can do that through your mailing list, or you can do that through your website, for example. And here's an example from Stina Holmes. On her website, she says, join Stina's Secret Society, which is basically a street team. And if you go check it out right now, I think her website's changed, but she has a form in there to join her street team that's a lot more complicated than the form to join her mailing list. Joining her mailing list, you just have to put in your email address. Joining her street team, she asks a bunch of questions, which was your favorite book of mine, which was your favorite character. And she asks a bunch of different questions that basically are going to filter people, because a lot of people would like to get the books for free, but you really want people who are dedicated, who are real fans of yours. So don't be afraid to make it a lot harder to sign up to your street team or secret society or fan group than it is too hard to sign up to your main mailing list. And always keep both separate. Now, street teams are really the best way, first, to get beta readers, second, to get ultra fans of your work, and third, to get reviews. But if your goal is really just to get reviews, there's another way you can do that, and it's to reach out to basically book reviewers. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of book reviewers who have a blog, so book review bloggers in pretty much any genre. We keep a directory updated, so it's not of 2017 anymore, it's 2018 on our blog at this URL. It's filterable. You can search by genre. You can search by the amount of traffic that they're getting as well. And that's a good but time-intensive way to get a bunch of reviews. You reach out to a lot of different reviewers in your genre and ask them if they'd like to review your book. Now, keep in mind that they get a lot of submissions every day, so most of them are going to say no. And keep in mind as well that you should really always research and follow their submission guidelines, because they all have slightly different submission guidelines, just like for agents and publishers. And because they get a bunch of submissions every day and they do this for free, if you don't follow their guidelines, they're just not going to look at your submission and never going to review your book. So again, it takes a lot of time. It's time intensive, but it's a way to generate good reviews for free. Cool. Now we're going to we've been talking about the presence on the retailers. We've been talking about discoverability. We've been talking about reviews. The next thing is to go really into the heart of the matter, which is sales. How many sales do you want at launch? And how are you going to get them? So the first question, obviously, how many sales do you want at launch, depends on kind of the categories you've picked. So again, if you've picked a category where you know that you need to get your book into the top 300, for example, on Barnes & Noble, you can have a chat with other Barnes & Noble authors, maybe following this webinar, maybe right now in the chat comments, and maybe devise as an author group, have an idea, how many sales do I need to reach this position on the store? Once you've got that figured out, you've got a daily target of sales. Now, what most retailers will favor is a strong but steady flux of sales. So don't basically do everything on day one and then stop promoting on day two, because if you get 200 sales on day one and 10 sales on day two, it's going to send a wrong signal to most retailers. Most retailers, most algorithms are going to prefer seeing 50 or maybe 100 sales on day one, 100 sales on day two, 100 sales on day three, etc. So try to shoot for like a week with the same daily target of sales, more or less. Now, in my example here, I'm thinking that I want around 100 sales a day at launch to reach and stick to #1 in my category. So I'm going to plan my launch accordingly. I'm going to say, okay, I want 100 sales on day one. So I've got my street team that's already, that's maybe 40, 50 people. I'm going to lower my price at launch to $0.99. That way my street team, even if they already received an advanced review copy of my book, they might like me enough that they're going to purchase the book. So I'm going to generate 30 sales at a low price, but 30 sales for that to the street team. And then because I'm running a price promotion, I'm going to get a promo in eReader News Today and generate 50 sales through that. Then I'm going to start running Facebook ads and I'm going to get 20 sales through that. Obviously, it's clearly not an exact science. but it's a way of kind of planning the different activities you're going to use, and also stacking up your promotion sites if you're going to run a price promo, which is something I'm going to get later on. So I've never seen an author have something that as detailed as a launch plan, but even if you don't have the numbers, you should have the activities at least, and a target for daily sales. Okay, so I gave you a preview already in that little table, but now we're going to be talking about the actual marketing channels you can leverage and the most popular ones that I've seen working for authors out there. The first one is email marketing. Some authors don't have a mailing list, but especially, I mean, if you're distributing on Barnes & Noble and other e-retailers, you really need, if you're wide, basically, you really need a mailing list. So the best way I explain the importance of the mailing list is, let's say you're writing a series. For some reason, you managed to get 10,000 sales on book one. So awesome, congratulations. And then a couple of months after, you release book two. If you don't have a mailing list, these 10,000 readers who bought book one are probably not going to know about the fact that you're launching book two, because you don't have their contact information, so you can't tell them. Now, Barnes & Noble and other e-retailers might tell them, you read that book by that author, apparently you enjoyed it, they're launching a new book through their automated email recommendations, but they're probably not going to tell everyone. So you want to have control over, as much control as possible over your readers and over your readers' data and contact information, which is why you want a mailing list. Now, the most popular mailing list service is MailChimp. But the slight problem with MailChimp is that it can get quite expensive once you basically have more than 2,000 subscribers in your mailing list. And up to 2,000 subscribers, it's free. But after that, it can get a little bit expensive. MailerLite is a really good alternative that has most of the features of MailChimp, and that is a lot less expensive. So I'm not recommending MailerLite because I personally use MailChimp. But if you're in that range of like 5,000, 10,000 subscribers, and MailChimp is just getting crazy expensive for you and you feel like it's not worth it, think about switching to MailerLite. Now, it's great to have a mailing list, but it's also very important to grow it. So back to my example, if you have that first launch that goes super well and you sell 1,000 copies, how do you get those 10,000 copies? How do you get at least a good portion of these 10,000 people to sign up to your newsletter? The answer is simple. You need to have a newsletter sign-up form in as many places as possible. So have it front and center on your website. Like your website's main purpose, in my opinion, should be to capture people's email addresses. Like if people go to your website, it means that they've heard about you. If someone goes to Mark Dawson's website, it's because they've read a book by Mark Dawson, or they've heard the name Mark Dawson recommended by one of their friends, or something like that. So there's already a sense of familiarity with the author. So there's no need in telling them all about yourself and your books. Offer them a book for free and ask them to sign up to your newsletter. That's, in my opinion, the best thing you can do. You also can add a link to your website or sign-up form, on all your social media bios. So in your Twitter bio, have something like sign up to my newsletter for free, or get a free book by signing up to my newsletter here, link. Same on your Facebook page in the about. If you use Google+, same there as well, etc. Have your sign-up form as well in the first page of the back matter of all your books, so that once a reader finishes reading one of your books, they see sign up to my newsletter to stay in touch with me, or get a free novella by signing up to my newsletter, and then a link to your newsletter sign-up form. And finally, add the same link to your newsletter form in your front matter. So the front matter is before the body of your book. So it may seem weird to include it there, but the reason you should do it is for the people who use the Barnes & Noble previewer or other retailer previewers. Maybe people are not going to buy your book, but if in the preview they see that they can get a free novella by signing up to your newsletter, they might click on the link and sign up to your newsletter. So you should take advantage of preview browsers. By the way, as you can see, there are links on all my slides to interesting blog posts. This is a guest post that we did for Barnes & Noble a few days ago, actually. So when you get the slides, you'll be able to just click on these different links and read the blog posts for more info about, in this case, mailing lists. Now, different tools you can use to grow your mailing list. The first one, as I mentioned several times the previous slide, is using a reader magnet. So a reader magnet is basically something that you give away for free in exchange for sign up to your newsletter. Most of the time, it's going to be a free book. It can be 2 free books or 3 free books. If we look here, Mark Dawson's offers the Mark Dawson Starter Library, which I think are 3 books. So that's super generous. But again, the more you offer, the more it is an incentive for people to sign up to your newsletter. If you don't have 3 books, you can offer 1 book or a novella or a short read. If you write nonfiction, you've got even more possibilities. Free video course, free email course, free webinar, free template or checklist, anything relevant to the topic you're writing about. So that's the main way, I think, to grow a newsletter, offering something for free and advertising that in as many places as possible, your website, front matter, back matter, social media, etc. If you want even more signups to your newsletter, then a really cost-effective way to get them is to use Facebook lead advertising. So we're going to be talking a bit about Facebook later. You can also organize group giveaways. So I'm running a group giveaway. I've organized a group giveaway for a few authors right now through InstaFreebie. And that's basically you team up with several other authors, for example, 10 other authors, and each one of you offers a book for free for a limited period of time, let's say 10 days. And during these 10 days, if people go to a URL on InstaFreebie or BookFunnel, the readers can basically download these 10 books for free. Now, each of these authors, these 10 authors participating in the group giveaway, is going to promote the group giveaway to their audience. So I'm going to send a newsletter to my readers saying, check out, my book is free. You can get my book for free as part of this giveaway. And also check out these 9 other books, which are really awesome. And if every other author in the giveaway does it, then it's 10 authors co-promoting, cross-promoting the same giveaway, and basically sharing their audience with other readers. Because when readers download the book, they often sign up to that author's mailing list. So it's a way to grow your mailing list by cross-promoting with other authors. Another way is to organize another type of giveaway through Consumer Rafflecopter. I'm not going to go too deep into that because it could be a webinar on its own. But you can run giveaways like that. And the last point is the most important one, I think, is that if you interact with your list, it will grow. Like, readers are fond of talking to other readers about the authors they follow, especially if you're an indie author, you might not be famous. And like, if you develop a really good relationship with your readers, then these readers will become your ambassadors and forward your newsletters to other authors. I've heard countless case scenarios where every time an author sent a newsletter, they got a few unsubscribes, but they also got a bunch of subscribes because people forwarded readers forwarded the newsletter to friends, and other people subscribed. So if you interact well with your newsletter, it will grow organically. And another really important form of cross promotion that I wanted to dedicate a slide to is newsletter swaps. So again, my main advice for everyone is to make friends with other indie authors in your genre. It's the best thing you can do for your career. Conferences are a great way to do that. Participating in webinars and chatting in the chat box is also a good other way to do that. Facebook groups. But I mean, yeah, face-to-face at conferences is really good. So make friends. Then promote their books in your newsletter. Because the thing is, if you have a bunch of readers in your newsletter, you might not be launching a book every month. You might be launching a book every 6 months or every year. If you send a newsletter every 6 months or every year just to tell people about your launch, then readers in your newsletter are going to forget about you. They're going to forget who you are. They won't understand why you're emailing them. So you need to regularly email people to remind them about you. If you don't have anything to tell them about what related to your books, you could tell them about the books from your author friends. And in return, your author friends are going to tell their readers in their newsletters about your books. So that's a very, very simple form of course promotion that we call newsletter swaps. You should obviously be selective about the people you include in your newsletter swaps. I see a lot of authors reaching out on Facebook groups saying, is someone ready to do a newsletter swap? Would someone be available to do a newsletter swap with me? I've got this book. And the covers often aren't great or the reviews aren't great. So be very, very picky about the people you promote to your audience. Because obviously, if you promote a bad book to your audience, then readers are not going to be very interested about your next newsletter. And finally, be respectful. Obviously, as I was saying, the readers are trusting you, and the authors you cross-promote with are trusting you as well. So you need to be extremely respectful. Newsletter swaps are one of the most effective marketing techniques to grow your mailing list, but they also require you to really preserve your trust. Be careful to preserve your trust both with your readers and with your author friends. Another extremely good way and simple way to generate sales, so we're now back to really generating sales rather than growing the mailing list, is running a price promotion. Running a price promotion is basically dropping the price of your book over a limited time period. Price promotions are the best way to get traffic. A lot of retailers, just by seeing that you've dropped your price, they're going to recommend your book to more people, because it's going to, retailers just love announcing bargains and time-sensitive deals to their audience. If you launch and do a price promotion at launch, for example, if you're going to launch a $3 or $4 book, but you run a price promotion at $0.99 during the first 5 or 7 days, the advantage is you can also ask your street team to purchase the book, because $0.99 is almost nothing. So you can tell them, look, I know you already got an advanced review copy and I hope you enjoyed it. The book launches tomorrow. It'd be great if on top of leaving a review, you could purchase the book. And a lot of people will do it. Price promotion is also a great way to revive sales across your series. So if, for example, you're launching book 3 1 year or 2 after launching book 2, run a price promotion on book 1 and on book 2 so that you kind of revive sales on these 2 books at the same time as you would launch book 3. Now, if you suddenly drop your price from $4 to $0.99 in a book, it's going to get a bit more visibility on all the retailers automatically, but that might not be enough nowadays. There are a lot of authors offering a lot of books for virtually nothing. So you can't stand out by just doing a price promotion. You also need to promote the price promotion, the discount. Again, we've got a directory of price promo sites classified by tiers. So tier 1 is going to include Bookbub, the most famous one that's really, really hard to get. But then we've got other ones as well, like Bargain Booksy, eReader News Today, Kindle Nation Daily, the Fussy Librarian, and I'm forgetting a bunch of them, but you'll find them in this directory, basically. Or if you just Google book promotion sites, you'll get a few lists of book promo sites that you can test. Cool. Another great way to promote your discount, your price promotion, is to run Facebook ads. Facebook ads work for any genre. I've tested them across a lot of genres. I've run Facebook ads for a lot of authors, friends of mine, and I haven't seen any genre so far where they don't work. But what's true is that in certain genres, they work a lot better if they promote a price promotion rather than a full price book. So if you're running a price promotion at $0.99, definitely try your hand with Facebook ads. Here are 2 examples. What you want in an ad is basically a solid amount of copy before the ad. I'm going to tell you a bit about it after the slide. Also, a striking image, and then a headline. Again, think from a reader perspective when you're devising your ad, from a Facebook user perspective in this case. If you're scrolling down your feed, the first thing you look at are the images or the videos. So if you've got a video, a little GIF like this one, or a book trailer, include it, because people who see a video tend to stop when they scroll down their feed. Try to use striking colors. So again, people stop in their feed. If people stop and start watching their video or looking at your image, the next thing they're going to look at is your headline here. So the second most important thing is the headline. If they're convinced by the headline, then they're going to look at the text on top as well and then click. So these are the most important things: image, headline, and then the text. I'm gonna skip the targeting for now. So some ground rules for the ad image: use as little text as possible. If you've read the book, which I really recommend, Help My Facebook Ads Suck by Michael Cooper, you'll know that he doesn't use any text in his Facebook ad images. I don't necessarily recommend that for everyone. In my tests, it really depends on the genre. It's true that in fantasy and science fiction, I've had the best results using no text in the ad images. No text, by the way, means using no cover, because there's obviously text, the title and your author name and subtitle on the cover. So again, for fantasy and sci-fi, you can find very striking pictures that say this is fantasy, this is sci-fi for free on the internet, and use those rather than your book cover. For other genres, it might be more complicated to convey the idea of the genre and the idea that it's a book without using a cover. So for other genres, I'd say use probably the cover, but don't add any other text. If you're running a price promotion, you should include that in the ad image. Maybe something in red, 70% off, or $0.99 or something like that. It's really important. And any kind of mention of a deal or price or free on an ad image always works. The second most important thing, as I was saying, is a headline. Keep it short and powerful. Always preview your ads in mobile. You'll see that you don't have a lot of characters available for the headline, because on mobile, everything you have available, as you can see here, it's pretty short. You're in your favorite Southern Cousin Mystery series. There's not a lot more that fits in there. So keep it short and powerful. Don't tell people about your book in the headline. Just use something that's going to grab people's attention. Tell them about the book in the text field above the image. So what I was saying here. Here's where you can include as much info as you want about the book, about the plot, about the characters. Speaking of which, I've heard that plot-focused blurbs tend to work better for male audiences, and character ones tend to work better for female audiences. So it's something that you should test, in my opinion, but it's something I've heard more than once. Now, in terms of targeting, the best way to find a good targeting, to find a good audience on Facebook, is to target similar authors in your genre. So what you can do, you should have an idea of who the famous authors are in your subcategory. And more often than not, you'll be able to find them in the interests part of the ad set where you're defining the audience. Then you can use Facebook Audience Insights. Again, this is a screenshot from Facebook Audience Insights to analyze these audiences. For example, here I've put in Anne Rice and Diana Gabaldon, and I see that 600,000 people audience, so it's pretty big. I see that it's 87% women. If I go to page likes, I might find other ideas, other authors similar to these two that their fans tend to like on Facebook. So again, use Facebook Audience Insights. If you're struggling to find good audiences, it might give you a lot of ideas. I don't have time to go deeper into Facebook ads. Again, that could be a webinar of its own, but feel free to send me questions, and you'll see I have for additional resources for you in the coming slides. Now, I do want to mention Bookbub CPM and CPC ads, because they're kind of the newer player in the block, and a lot of authors have found them really, really useful. I haven't experimented with them, but I've been following David Gaughran's series on them. If you haven't read it, I'm recommending him in the next few slides. And they tend to work really well. So they're not the typical Bookbub featured deals that are almost impossible to get nowadays. They're self-serve ads. So similar platform to Facebook advertising. You've got a self-serve ads platform on Bookbub where you can basically set in a budget, set in a targeting, create your ad image, and just start serving your ad. The ads are going to show and newsletters, depending on your targeting. And they're just going to show on the bottom of the newsletter. This is what they look like. Basically, here's a featured deal, and below the featured deal, you get an ad. They tend to be a lot more flexible than Facebook ads and easier to get results with. Like Facebook is really complicated because it's got a million different options, so you can feel lost in their interface. Bookbub doesn't have a million different options, so it can be much easier to create the ad. They're also much easier to test than other types of ads because they spend your money very quickly, so you very quickly get a sense of whether they're working or not and can iterate based on that. Some quick ground rules. So for the creatives, don't use Bookbub's tool to design the creative. Either ask your designer or try your hand creating something on Canva or on any other design software that you use. But Canva is pretty good if you don't use any. It's very quick to learn. Display your cover, display the deal, and a clear call to action. Now, you can use Bookbub ads also when you're not running a press promotion to advertise a full price book, but it tends not to work because, again, like Bookbub readers in the Bookbub audience, readers who are subscribed to Bookbub newsletters, are readers who want to get bargains on books. If you tell them about a full price book, that's probably not interest them. However, if you're running a price promotion and you can't get a Bookbub featured deal, then serving Bookbub ads to promote that promotion can be extremely effective. And in which case, you should definitely display the deal on your ad image. And obviously a clear call to action. As you can see here, there's the cover, background image, a tagline, a review actually, and there's the call to action here. There's no deal, but if you have a deal, you should probably display it somewhere on there as well. In terms of targeting, just basically you can target other authors. So same idea as Facebook, you have a lot more authors available. Just add in authors and categories until you reach a defined audience. There's a little meter when you set your audience on Bookbub that tells you whether the audience is too narrow or too wide. You want it to be in the defined. Once you get to defined, start running your ads. In terms of bid, it's all about testing in the beginning. Like you don't know what works in the beginning. So just like bid high and get quick results and iterate based on that. Once you've found an image, an ad that works, an ad and an audience that work, then you can reduce your bid. Cool. And in terms of budget, yeah, $10 or $15 should work to run a solid test. Now, we're nearing the end. So again, if you have questions, just ask them in the chat on the right, and they're going to be sent to me by email just after this section. Now, I keep getting asked almost every day whether marketers can run marketing on behalf of authors. So I'm going to cover when and why it makes sense to hire professional help. Should you hire a book marketer? I think it can be a good idea to hire a book marketer if you want professional feedback on your author platform, for example, or if you want to brainstorm with someone about your next launch. So if you want a pro to help you out to put together your marketing plan, that's a great idea. That can be done over a series of consultations, for example. Same for like feedback on your author platform, can be done in one consultation and one email. So it can be pretty cheap. If you want to try a new marketing channel as well, for example, if you've never run Facebook ads and you want to start trying your hand at them, then you can hire a book marketer specialized in Facebook ads, not to run the Facebook ads for you, but to set them up, set the first campaign up with you and teach you how they work. And that's really the important difference. Until you get to a point where you're selling probably hundreds of thousands or millions of books every year, I don't recommend having a full-time book marketer doing or part-time book marketer doing stuff for you. Like, I don't recommend having someone run your ads for you, run your mailing list for you, or anything like that. Because those marketers tend to cost between $5,000 and $10,000 a month, and you're just not going to be able to afford that unless you sell a lot of books. So if you just want someone to just do the marketing for you, that's not how it works. You're never going to find someone who's just going to do everything for you unless you pay them 10 grand a month, which is not in your interest. Again, don't even consider hiring a book marketer if you haven't hired an editor, several editors, and a professional cover designer. That's the number one issue we have on Reedsy with authors coming to us for marketing, is that none of our book marketers are interested in working with them because they know they're not going to be able to sell that book because of like either the content or the cover. And they're going to be very blunt about it. They're going to say, change your cover. Don't hire, again, a marketer if you don't know who your target market is. Because if you tell them, I'd like to get more sales, okay, who are you targeting? Oh, just like literary fiction readers. That's just too broad. Like, first define who your audience is, what your goals are, and then start brainstorming with a marketer. And finally, don't hire a marketer if you don't know anything and you don't want to learn about digital marketing. This goes back to hiring someone who's just going to do the thing for you. It's not how it works. It's not how it works nowadays. You got to learn about book marketing. You got to learn at least about the popular marketing channels, about all the things that I've been through in this webinar. I'm not saying you can't hire someone to help you with it, but you need to know what you're hiring someone for. I also want to make a distinction between book marketers and virtual assistants. A lot of authors, even authors who aren't selling 100 books, 100,000 books a year, can hire virtual assistants. It can be a good idea. A virtual assistant is basically someone based usually somewhere else, sometimes in a cheap country, who's going to do work for you that you don't want to do on your own. So that can be things like formatting, or sometimes answering emails, or at least like filtering emails in your inbox, or checking on ads for you if you tell them exactly how to do it. So basically tasks that you don't want to do on your own anymore, that you know how to do, but you prefer to have outsourced. A lot of authors I know actually have their husband or someone in their family doing a lot of that for them. So I actually know a lot of husbands who are the virtual assistants of the author, and that can work. That can work pretty well. But in that case, I really recommend that you get your husband or your wife who wants to become your who wants to help you out to get trained in all things book marketing related. A book marketer is someone entirely different. It's someone who has experience, who has knowledge about book marketing, who's going to guide and teach you through consultations, and who's not going to do kind of the day-to-day dirty work. They might do it for a week or two or a month, but then they're either going to teach you how to do it so you keep doing it, or they're going to employ a virtual assistant themselves, and they're obviously going to bill you more than what the virtual assistant is billing them. Where you can find a good book marketer, well, as I mentioned, we have quite a few of them on Reedsy. I think we have around 10 or 15 constantly available through our marketplace. That's not a lot. If you look at the other categories, we've got maybe 500 and more editors and 400 and more designers. Good book marketers are scarce. Most people who are really good at book marketing either start producing a course or start like using their knowledge just for them and not offering consultancy or one-to-one guidance. We still have managed to find a few who do. And so if you're looking for someone, we've done the hard work of going out there and kind of finding really good people who know what they're talking about when it comes to marketing a book. Again, so if you go to that URL, you'll find marketers. And as always on Reedsy, you can filter by your genre and the type of service you are, whether you want like just a consultation, marketing strategy, someone to help you with ads or mailing list or anything like that, or metadata and blurb optimization. Now, as promised, I have further resources for you on book marketing. First, Barnes & Noble Press has a very helpful author tools and tips section. So again, you'll get the slides, you'll get those links, you can click on those links. And they have a bunch of resources in there when it comes to retailer metadata, mailing lists, copywriting, and things like that. One of the books I recommend the most when it comes to book marketing is Let's Get Digital by David Gaughran. and Help My Facebook Ads Suck by Michael Cooper. He's got a very specific view, as I mentioned, on Facebook ads, things like don't use text in your ad image. I don't agree 100% with everything he says, but if you read that book thinking it's a strategy that worked for him and that's worth testing, rather than this is the Bible about Facebook ads, then it's a really helpful book. And finally, you've probably heard about Mark Dawson's Ads for Authors and Self-Publishing 101 courses. These are the only courses we really recommend at Reedsy. So I know Mark Dawson, I've taken the courses, and yeah, they've produced a lot of results for other authors. So if you're considering investing money in a course, I'd invest in his course rather than another. Now, if you're looking to learn more about marketing on your own without spending hundreds of dollars, then we've got a bunch of free courses as well on Reedsy. So it's an initiative which launched 2 years ago called Reedsy Learning. And we now have 41 free courses just waiting for you. The courses are sent by email, 1 lesson a day for 10 days. And it's a lesson that gets sent in the morning and takes just 5 minutes to read. So you basically get your morning coffee, open your phone or open your laptop, read the Reedsy Learning lesson of the day, and just learn something new for free every morning on a given topic. We've got, again, 41 different courses. We've got a lot of them marketing. We've got, for example, one on mailing lists, which I wrote, one on price promotion written by Word and Word Media, so Bookbub's main competitor, and one on Facebook ads for authors, which I also wrote and recently updated. And that's kind of it for this presentation. So again, I'm going to check my emails now to see if you have any questions. And I'm going to try going through them now. Again, if you have other questions, just put them in the little chat box. So someone would like to learn more about discovery rather than push advertising, refers book ads. It's a really good question that, again, could take quite a bit of material to answer. I'm actually writing a book about this subject right now in Facebook ads. So the idea about discovery is generating brand awareness and generating interest among readers without pushing them to buy a book through Facebook advertising. So a tactic that I've found works really well is to advertise a video with no call to action to the people you intend to sell your book to. So for example, if you've got an audience of, I don't know, fans of Lee Child and James Patterson in the US, and you've got a book launch in a month, during the month before launch, you just like run an ad with a trailer announcing the book with no call to action. Even if you have a pre-order, don't like link to anything, and just like use a video view objective so that you get a bunch of people viewing the ad and recommending it and sharing it. Because it doesn't ask for anything, it's probably going to get shared more, reacted more, so it's going to have a high relevance score. So you're going to get a lot of organic views on it as well. So it's going to cost you less per video view. I'd say shoot for under 2 cents per video view. That's definitely per 3-second video view or 10-second video view. That's definitely achievable. And then once you launch your book, you can retarget all the people who viewed that video with a proper push ad. So an ad saying, my book's now launched. You can buy it on all the e-retailers. And if you have a deal, if you're running a price promo, we'll let them know about the price promo. So it's kind of a 2-level Facebook advertising strategy where the first part is all about discovery and brand awareness, and second part is proper push advertising. And the advantage with that is that most authors nowadays are just running push ads, and I think readers might be getting tired about them. So if you run discovery first and retarget afterwards, it might be actually cheaper. Another question: what do I think about hitting up local newspapers and websites to generate leads? I think that's a good approach. We actually have a blog post on our blog on going local for a book launch. I think it works particularly well if your book has something local about it. Otherwise, like playing the angle of I'm a local author is not necessarily going to work with big local publications. It might work for small local publications, but since they're small, it might not be worth going through the trouble of pitching them and getting an article in there when they're probably not going to bring you a lot of sales. I personally think that for most books, going to newspapers or online publications where you have to pitch journalists can be more a waste of time than anything else. It's not one of the most, let's say, effective channels I've seen. But if your book is nonfiction, then it's another story. You can definitely pitch publications in your niche topic. If your book is about something local, you can definitely pitch local publications as well. 2 million people on Facebook can hide what they don't want to see. How is that effective marketing? I don't think the 2 million people on Facebook all hide what they don't want to see. There are lots of people on Facebook who are still extremely receptive to ads. Facebook hides the ads pretty well. Like they appear like organic posts on the timeline. So again, if people choose not to receive ads, and people can do that using ad blockers, then they're just not going to see your ad and you're not going to be charged for it. You're charged when people see your ad. So I don't think it's a huge problem. Again, Facebook is one of the most effective advertising platforms, if not the most effective one out there. And there's not one genre for which it cannot work for an author. So if you prefer not to run ads on it, that's totally understandable from maybe an ethical point of view or an opinion about Facebook, but they are effective. What about Facebook ads for nonfiction? They work just as well. It's just a question of defining the audience. So if you're writing a book about meditation, there are a bunch of interests. I'm pretty sure meditation is an interest on its own. You can compound it with other interests. If you're talking about specific techniques, I'm pretty sure they're available as interests as well. So as I said, it's just a matter of finding the right interest to target and compounding it with the right demographics. Do you feel like there's an element of face-to-face marketing that is a lost art that we're missing? We seem to be doing everything online these days. I don't think it's a question of a lost art. Book marketing before the digital era used to be face-to-face, but that was because it wasn't selling to consumers. Book marketing was about selling to booksellers, and that's what actual publishers are still really good at, and one of the only things they're really, really good at is selling to booksellers, and that's face-to-face. You need to build a relationship with the bookseller, and you need to see them, invite them for lunch, probably see them at book fairs, and tell them that you want these and these books to be really, really promoted to the stores, in the stores. Now, nowadays you can reach readers directly, and it's much easier to reach thousands and thousands of readers online than doing it in person. You're not going to go door to door and ask people. So unless your book is about a local event or is about a close-knit group that you can reach face-to-face, a lot of authors who are also speakers and write a book about, I don't know, self-help or business, something like that, are going to do speeches and are going to run events around their book and sell their book at events. And so that's more face-to-face. So I'd say face-to-face can still be effective, but for very niche books. If you're writing mainstream fiction or narrative nonfiction, it's not gonna be a good channel for you, I think. Good, I'm gonna see if I'm getting any more questions. Yeah, I got another email, but obviously my phone's not working well, so I'm not being able to see the email. Okay, cool. Okay, what's the best way to find your demographic, and what various strategies can we use to find our readers? And once you know your demographic, how do you know where to find them? I mean, demographic might not be that important depending on your genre. If you think your book can honestly appeal to any age and any gender, then defining your ideal reader might not be a question of demographics. It might be a question of interests or hobbies or activities or social situation or things like that. But you should be able to say, okay, this is what my ideal reader looks like. And that's something I think that no one else can do than you. There's no tool out there to do that for you. You should think, okay, who's the most likely persona to read this book that I'm writing. You can be influenced by other people around you, friends, family. Think, okay, who would really like this book in all the people I know? Once you have their demographic, how do you know where to find them? Again, it's not so much a question of demographic as like demographic and interest. If you know that the most ideal reader for your book is probably someone in their 30s who's interested in literary fiction, then you might find them at literary book clubs or at literary events, book signings, book readings. You might be advertising literary magazines. But it's as I said, yeah, it's more a question of interest than just demographic. It's combining the two. And then I think once you've really identified your book to an ideal persona, a proto-persona, then the ideas for reaching these kind of readers are just going to come to you naturally. Do you have any knowledge or stats on how Goodreads helps? I don't have any stats. I know that a lot of authors spend a lot of time and waste a lot of time on Goodreads without producing any result. I don't think it's the most effective platform. A lot of authors are afraid about Goodreads. I don't think you should be afraid, but I don't think you should spend too much time reading the reviews over there. Goodreads reviewers tend to be a bit harsher than other retailer reviewers. So just don't obsess over Goodreads reviews. Once you get to a certain level, opportunities will come up on Goodreads to run Q&As or things like that. But I don't think it's a platform you should be spending too much time on. Honestly, it's a platform where you can easily lose time on without producing any results. Cool. That's all the questions that I can see. Again, if you've posted other questions in the comments and I haven't been able to answer them, then just drop me a line by email. I'm going to probably go back to this first slide where you've got my email again. There we go. So write it down, drop me an email afterwards if you have any other questions. Thanks for attending this webinar. I hope it was useful. And I hope we'll be able to stay in touch and you'll consider taking a look at our free courses. Now, have a good day.